Hey guys, this video is going to walk you through the specifics of the references section in APA format. Now, in order to save time and both of our sanities, I'm not going to go through how to cite every source that you'll come across in APA format. Just like with our MLA lecture, I'm going to point you in the right direction and tell you if you have questions, if you need help, if you don't know how to cite a source, please let me know because I will be happy to help you. All you have to do is send me an email. If you're looking at a social media source and you don't know how to cite it, if you want, you can take a screenshot of the source you're looking at and send it to me. Most of what you're going to need is right there on that post. And particularly if you're looking at social media. Other types of sources might be different, but I should be able to help you. Just give me the information that I need and tell me what you're struggling with. Anyway, let's get started. So really use your little Seagull as a guide. If you didn't buy this book, shame on you, but actually it's fine. You can go to the Purdue OWL. Everything I reference in my lecture video is in reference to our little Seagull textbook, but you can find most of this information in the Purdue OWL, or ask one of your classmates for a snapshot of the page that you're looking for if it's not in the Purdue OWL. Okay, so just like our extended bibliography is organized into 3 different sections, I'm organizing the first page of these notes into 3 sections. So first, where you can find helpful social media references so that you can cite. I have had so many people in my face-to-face class and some people in my online class ask me about, for the extended bibliography, how many pictures or screenshots of their social media sources do they need to put on their document? Please know your extended bibliography is not pictures. It is APA format references. There shouldn't be one picture anywhere at all on your document. So if that's your line of thinking, please email me. We can clarify together. But hopefully this lecture will help that out as well. So regarding social media, if you are looking at, let's say, a news article or something that has comments that the public can post to below that article, and you want to cite those as part of your primary sources, then you might be looking at a comment in an online article. You can find that in your little Seagull here. Blog entries that are not edited, blog entries that are just personal blogs from anyone, all of that is social media, and you can find how to cite that in your little Seagull. YouTube videos, again, not all YouTube videos are going to count as social media, but anything where someone is posting a video, what I'm doing here could count as social media because I can post it immediately to YouTube. Nobody has to edit this for me. It's my version of social media account. It's just an educational format. So this could be a social media, but if you're looking at a video that was published or put out by, let's say, a news station or a documentary on YouTube, that really does not count. So be careful with it. If you're not sure, send me a link to it and I'll let you know. How to cite an online video. That's in your little Seagull, a post to an online forum. So a lot of our discussion forums function as social media, and that, something like Reddit, there's an example in our textbook for that. If you're looking at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any other social media, whether it's an app or whether you're looking at it on your computer, our textbook tells us how to cite that. I have decided that if you are retrieving sources from an app, and I understand that certainly can happen, then you'll notice that it asks you for this phrase like retrieved from, and usually you would put in a URL. Well, obviously apps don't have URLs, so just put retrieved from and then the name of the app that you're using. If you're looking at and citing secondary credible sources, most likely you are going to come across one of these. A page from a credible website. You can find that in our textbook, a page from or an article in an online journal, a magazine, or a newspaper is in our textbook. Some of you might be interested in watching a documentary. You know, there's that great social animals documentary on Netflix that I strongly recommend. There's another social media documentary on Netflix that is a little bit, rated R, so be careful. I think it's about like Paris Hilton or something. But you could watch it if you wanted to. And those would count as secondary credible sources, and you can, cite those as documentary films. And our textbook tells us how to do that. Okay. You might find that one of your secondary credible sources is a book. I didn't put that on here. It's absolutely in our textbook, how to cite a book in APA format, but I don't have very many students finding books. But you certainly could. I mean, what if your psychology book talks about this and you want to cite it? It's in there. It's at the beginning of the APA section. Regarding scholarly articles, of course, our textbook on page 191 talks about how to cite a scholarly article. However, I assume that most of you are going to be using ProQuest to find your scholarly articles. So, just as a reminder that you do have access to that cite function. One of the really nice things now that we are in APA format is that is what auto-populates when you click cite. So, there are a couple of editions that ProQuest has. We are in the APA 6th edition, not annotated with abstracts, but just American Psychological Association 6th edition. APA hasn't updated in a couple of years. So what you see here is APA format. You're likely to know you're in the correct format if you see the date written in parentheses, because that is a nuance of APA format that we'll talk about in a little bit. So I would say, just as a reminder, ProQuest can be one of your very best friends. Make sure that you follow all of the same strategies. If you do copy and paste any sources from anywhere, if you're going to use EasyBib, which I really do not recommend for this, but make sure that the font's black, Times New Roman, size 12, double spaced, hanging indent, all of that stuff. All right, so I'm going to scroll down to some questions that I get in this unit. One of them is, okay, so some of your references, particularly regarding social media, will ask you to copy the entirety of the post. So most of our posts on social media, especially today, are pretty short, and you can do that, and that's no problem. But sometimes the posts are long, or someone writes a note or something, and it's like a paragraph worth of text. What should you do in that instance? Well, what you should do is just write the beginning of the post, use an ellipsis, and then write the end of the post. And just use your best judgment when deciding how long you're going to have that be. In your extended bibliography, there is not a word count, so it really doesn't matter. You don't have to use the posts to fluff word count or anything like that. It's just a number of total sources. So this is an example kind of what it could look like. Some of the other questions I get, it's like, when I'm grading or evaluating these extended bibliographies, I often find that my students forget or leave off what I always end up calling the tag in the square bracket. And then they're like, well, what do you mean tag missing or square bracket missing or something like that? This is what I'm talking about. So you'll find as you start to notice the patterns of APA format and citing social media in APA format that when you do this, APA says, hey, tell us, the reader, what type of source this is by putting a tag in a square bracket after the post. So for example, if I scroll up just a little bit, I've copied my post here and I'm telling my reader this is a Facebook post. So there's a bunch of tag options that you guys are likely to come across. Facebook post, Facebook comment, Instagram post, video file, Reddit post, Pinterest post, tweet, whatever. You might find that there are other types of social media, LinkedIn, or things that I don't know exist, and that's perfectly fine. You just be really logical, keep it short, but make sure that it's clear, and we will be on the same page, okay? That's really the biggest difference between most of the social media citations. Then I want to talk about dates, because so far in these videos I haven't really talked about APA format in general, or the theories behind APA or when it's used, and so I want to spend a little bit of time doing that. APA stands for American Psychological Association. It is likely required if you plan to study psychology or maybe even sociology. There could be some other classes that or fields of study that use APA format, but it is, like MLA, one of the many citation styles, and it's one that you're more likely to come across in college. APA is, so why are dates so important in APA? And you're going to notice this is a huge difference between MLA and APA. In MLA, dates aren't as important. In fact, in our in-text citations, we don't incorporate dates. However, something we will talk about later is that in APA in-text citations, you do add the year that a work was published. You will also notice as you're doing these references or as you're looking at examples that after the author's name, the year is the very next bit of information that is most relevant to your reader. So why does that matter? Well, I think that it's because as psychology changes and theories change and we, learn more and more about science and about the brain and about how people behave and the ways that people change their behaviors, information becomes irrelevant and outdated pretty quickly. So it's really important for a reader, particularly if they're evaluating the credibility of your argument, to make sure that your argument is based within the most recent research possible. I don't necessarily require recent articles or scholarly journals or whatever from you, but I expect that you're likely to find only the most recent things, because that only the most recent theories and publications in social media are going to end up being relevant to your topic. But you will probably find in psychology classes that if you have to write a paper, your teacher says, hey, pick from the past 5 years, because that's going to give you the most relevant theory. So dates do matter to the reader, particularly if they are studying behavior and the theory of behavior, which changes. Certainly the foundations, which we've gotten many, many years ago, help us with our building blocks, but people are always talking about the new changing differences of why people do what they do. So I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit here. Now, this is my last page, and these are just some of the nuances of APA format references. So these are some things that you'll notice. They're patterns I want you to pick up on and note the difference with. I think a lot of students ask me, is APA harder than MLA? It is not harder, but if MLA is all you're used to, you might be the student that gets more points deducted because you're just so familiar with doing it the MLA way. If you're new to MLA and you're new to APA, then you're just trying both of these styles and you haven't maybe had that muscle memory to jump right into type somebody's first name instead of their first initial. So I'm going to show you some patterns of APA format, and I just want you to keep these in mind as you're building your references for your extended bibliography. One of those patterns is authors' names. In MLA format, you used to write the author's last name and the author's first name, and you would write the full thing. So for me, it would have been Osborne, Lisa. However, that is not the case in APA. They only care about the first initial. Last name, first initial. So here, if you had access to just the first initial, you would write last name, first initial with a period for abbreviation. Or if you had access to the first and middle initial, then you would add both of those with periods for each one. If you have multiple authors, APA lists out way more than MLA does, and MLA uses that et al. Phrase to say, you know, this guy and others, or this woman and others, but APA doesn't do that. So if you have 2 to 7 authors, you can list all of them out. And also, one of the things that I want you to notice is the way that they're listed. So in MLA format, you would list the authors by the first name, or the first author would have been last name, first name. And then all of the subsequent authors would have been first last, first last, just the way that you normally see names written, like Lisa Osborne, Lisa Osborne, Lisa Osborne, etc. However, in APA format, you will notice this pattern that if you have multiple authors, it will always be the same as the first author. Last name, first initial, last name, first initial, last name, first initial, and so on. Now, if you have 8 or more authors writing a piece together, which can happen, certainly does, then you will write the first 6 authors in that format. You'll use an ellipsis, and then you will write the last author. Okay, so I feel bad for any scholarly article that has exactly 8 authors because there is just one person who gets left out of that reference. It's kind of funny. Regarding titles, you're going to notice something else, and this is something I didn't notice as a student, but I noticed once I started teaching. Titles are capitalized differently than in MLA. In MLA format, we capitalize what I call all of the major words, including the first one. However, in APA format, only the first word of the title, and again, this is talking just about the references. So if you have an article title that you are citing, only the first word of that title is capitalized. If it has a subtitle, only the first word of the subtitle is capitalized, unless it is a proper noun. So I'll show you an example of that in a second, but it's very different. It's something you have to just remind yourself, make a checklist for yourself and remind yourself to look for it so that you can edit it out, because it is not a habit that you're probably used to. Dates will be written always in parentheses. I can't tell you why. I'm not sure, but that is just a nuance of the dates in APA format. You'll notice that in not only the references page and the citations that you're writing, but also as in-text citations. And then some things are the same as MLA. So your references are organized alphabetically, they're double-spaced, and they're using that hanging indent. And this is an example of what your extended bibliography should look like. And here you can see some of the things we've talked about. So here's some social media sources. You see that tag. You see... Well, my student who did this, she didn't put the beginning and the end of the post. She used a ... or the ellipsis to say this continues on, but it's too long. You see this retrieved from, and then she used the URL. You see if there is a first and a last name, that we have last name, first initial. Sometimes in social media, you're just going to have a username, so you would type the full username as seen and not worry about that last first concept. I'm going to skip down and look at her secondary sources. I want to see if she did her titles correctly. I can't remember now that I think about it. No, there's more social media. Here we go. So she didn't do all of her titles correctly, so don't use this as a good example. But she should have had these titles as lowercase. North Carolina would be capitalized because that's a proper noun, but the E, the F, the D, and the S in students should not be capitalized. Also, she's got, you know, a full name here, so I'm sure she got some points taken off for this. Let's see what else. And then you'll notice, of course, that in parentheses you see the dates written in every single one of these citations. There's not likely going to be a time where you can't find the date, but if you do come across that, let me know. I will give you, I'll give you the workaround for what to do. If you don't have an author, there's also a workaround there. You would never start with the date. So again, if that's an issue that you're running into, please email me and let me know about it, because I'm happy to tell you what to do. Alright, so I think that covers everything regarding references. If you have questions, please let me know. This is new to, I'm assuming, most of you. It is still, this is the newest format to me. I mean, I've been teaching it for at least 5 years, but I was never required to do APA, so sometimes I have to look things up too, and that's alright. And if you come across anything that you find interesting and you want to share with me, let me know so that I can share that with other people as well. Alright, y'all, you know what to do if you have questions.